Good morning. We call this meeting to order for the Wednesday, September 20, 2023 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hennigan, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Matthew Mitchell. Commissioner Susanna Ballard.
Here.
Commissioner Joan DeZuro.
Here.
Commissioner Paul Lair.
Here.
Commissioner Tiffany Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Lonnie Stevenson.
Here.
Commissioner J.P. Thornton.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Harris. Vice Chair Gabrielle Medley. Chair David Diaz.
Here. All right, so we've seen we have two vacancies. Can I have Mr. Stevenson and Mr. Thornton please approach the dais and take your seats and sign in, please? And Ms. Hennigan, let me know when they're signed in, please.
All right, we look good to go.
Thank you. Mr. Gilbert, any announcements? And correspondence?
None for today.
Okay, thank you. That was short and sweet. Okay, we have approved the minutes. We have two item numbers. We have 2 minutes to approve from two previous meetings. First is item number ID 233969, minutes from August 16th, 2023 meeting. And the next is item number ID 233972, the minutes from the August 23rd, 2023 meeting. So I'm looking for a motion to approve, or if there's any further discussions, changes, or deletions. Commissioner Ballard, motion?
I motion that we approve. I make a motion we approve the minutes of the August 16th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting, as well as approval of the minutes of the August 23rd, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting.
I'll second.
Commissioner DeZuro. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Ballard and a second by Commissioner DeZuro. Any further discussion? Okay, we're ready for the vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing as there is a structured order to the process. City staff will present each item. There will be time for the commission to ask questions of the staff, and the applicant will have an opportunity to present their case to the commission. Once that is completed, we will open a public hearing to give community members an opportunity to ask questions or provide input. I ask that anyone who wishes to speak limit their trips to the microphone to once per agenda item and keep their comments to less than 5 minutes. Please stay on point and refrain from discussing subject matter not pertinent to the item being considered. There will be an opportunity for the public to address commissioners about other topics later in the meeting. Okay, the first item for public hearing is item ID number 233956, a request for a rezone for 1695 Deer Run Drive, APN number 115-05-046, meets and bounds from Agriculture Preservation AP District to Residential Single Family R1 District. Mr. Kearns, your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The subject property measures .33 acres and is currently vacant. It is located on the west end of Deer Run Drive, west of Cabana Drive. The properties to the west and south are part of Lake Havasu Memorial Gardens and are zoned agricultural preservation and developed with the cemetery. The properties to the east are zoned residential single-family and are developed into single-family homes. The lots to the north are zoned multifamily, planned development, and are developed into single-family homes. The future land use map of the general plan designates this area as low-density residential. The proposed zoning classification is in conformance with the general plan land use map. The citizens meeting was held on July 22nd, 2023. The applicant's citizens meeting letter states a desire to rezone the property from agricultural preservation to residential single-family to build a single-family home. The applicant's letter of intent states that they intend to build a single-story, 2,400 square foot single-family home with an attached RV garage and a pool. The regular R1 development standards will apply. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is also present for any questions.
Does the commissioners have any questions for the staff on this item number? Okay, seeing none. Is the applicant present? Yes. Wish to address the commission, please come to the podium and state your name for the record if you wish to address us. Spell your last name, please, also.
My name is Brian Wheeler. My wife and I recently purchased the property.
You can lift that up.
Okay. And the reason in doing so was to build a house. We have a house about 3 blocks away from there right now. We really like that area. That property came up, and so we purchased it to build a house. It's just her and I, you know, we're not going to have a lot of kids and stuff. Not a lot of traffic going down there, just 1 or 2 cars, and mainly to get an RV garage or garage space, which our current house does not have right now.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to the applicant from Commission? Mr. Stevenson?
So Mr. Wheeler, when you purchased this lot, was it already graded or did you have it
No,
graded?
the grading was done, to my knowledge, back around 2000, early 2000s, and has just been sitting since.
Thank you.
Any other questions by commissioners? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing. The public is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to address the commission on, I'm sorry. Is there anyone who wishes to address the commissioner on this item in the public? All right, seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing and bring it back for staff's recommendation. Mr. Kearns.
Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends that the commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for Land Use Action Number 23-3956 for a rezone for 1695 Deer Run Drive, parcel number 115-05046, meets and bounds from Agricultural Preservation District to Residential Single Family District. This item will go to the City Council's October 24th, 2023 meeting.
Did the applicant understand that? Yes. Great, thank you. Okay, at this point, any more comments about this item from the commissioners? If not, we're looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Ballard?
I motion that we recommend approval for the request for a rezone for 1695 Deer Run Drive, APN number 115-05-046, meets and bounds from Agricultural Preservation AP District to Residential Single Family R1 District.
Looking for a second.
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Wilson, any more discussion? Okay, we're ready for the vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. Good luck to you. All right, the next item on the Docket is ID number 233954, request for a planned development rezone for 740, 730, 720, 710, 700, and 670 Delta Drive, and 681, 691, and 701 McCulloch Boulevard South, tract 2222, Block 5, lots 1 through 9, from limited commercial C1 district to multiple family planned development RM-PD district, allowing a maximum density increase from 20 dwelling units per acre to 37.1 dwelling units per acre. Mr. Gilbert, your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, there's a large number of people here for this topic today. The developer and his team is here as well, is present. Let me advance the slides. In advance, I do want to make a couple of comments. I'm going to be combining the slide presentation review along with referencing other documents throughout this presentation. I want to start with stating that this project is a planned development. Planned developments require conceptual development plans to be submitted for rezonings. These are not the final detailed site plans, and it's important for the public when they come up later to speak. Exact numbers are not required, but the concept plan that is submitted here today is required, if it's approved by the council, is required to be substantially followed when the final site plan is submitted. Significant changes to the plan would require coming back. So it's important to note that there's not going to be absolutely exact numbers and dimensions on everything today, because all they're asking for is a rezone. They're not asking for site plan approval. That comes later. Important to point that out. Start with the first slide showing the general location of the property. McCulloch Boulevard, Delta Drive, and just northwest of Chemehuevi. And I'll use let's see, can you see that? Yeah. Chemehuevi here, McCulloch, Delta Drive, and Alley 34 is actually the southeast defining boundary. So the developer pieced together a number of lots for this project, which you can see on here in Block 5, and there's 9 different parcels, and there's various easements. I'll get to that later as well. On the other side here, directly on the intersection of Chemehuevi and McCulloch, is the same zoning, and let me advance this one slide. It's all C1 right now. The subject property C1 is being asked for this rezone today. The property on the other side of the alley has a single commercial location, but everything else on this entire C1 area is vacant presently. Now, since we're on the zoning slide, I think it's important to point out, as you look at this, that since Euclid versus Ambler Realty in 1926, a Supreme Court case which legitimized zoning in America, there is a practice that's been taught colleges everywhere to planners called Euclidean zoning, which is very basic zoning strategy. And that basic zoning strategy is you buffer commercial, you use commercial to buffer from industrial, and then commercial multifamily is buffered by R2, which we have here, completely surrounded the entire ring of R2. And then that is the buffer to R1, which is everything else you see, the lighter yellow. So this is a very classic example, and of course it's because Mr. McCulloch master planned the community that we have such a classic example. If this was any other town that wasn't master planned, you wouldn't have it as neat as this to begin with. But this is a very classic textbook case of Euclidean zoning where you buffer single family with duplex, and you buffer the duplex with multifamily commercial, and then industrial would be buffered by those uses. So from that standpoint, as you look at this, they're asking to rezone a C1 property to actually downzone a C1 property to multifamily. That's commercial is considered a higher intensity of use, so they're actually downzoning it. And this is a very classic example. Let me advance slide one more. So if you look at the site plan It's very similar to the plan that was proposed in January to the Planning Commission of 2023 and to the City Council in February of 2023. They made a number of changes, though. And it's important to point out that the number of units has been dropped by over 10%. They're asking for 37.1 units per acre instead of the 41 that was previously asked for in January. The actual density of the units as it currently sits, while they're asking for 37.1, it's actually 36.1. So they significantly dropped the unit density and the total number of units from 87 to 78. So as a result, the parking ratio has gone up. And because the building has shrunk in size, the perimeter of the site has been able to be condensed a bit. And therefore, it's removing any exceptions that were requested last time for the overhang for the covered parking, for example, to extend into the required landscape area. That's no longer being requested. Let me advance this one more slide. This is a concept architectural drawing of what the building will look like, material and color-wise. This is important because this is one of those things that we would hold a developer to. When you submit a concept plan for approval and then you come in with something that's drab and with no color and different materials, that's something we would bring back, for example. They propose a building that has a good color mix, good color ratio, and various combinations of stucco and other materials to be an attractive modern building. Let me advance one more slide. This is just a footprint to show how it fits on the property. The setback of the building will be at least 50 feet from the property boundary of the surrounding streets in all directions, to McCulloch and to Delta Drive to the southwest and the northwest. And let's see, I want to cover a couple other points here. Let me go back to the zoning. Okay. C1 zoning, important to point out that while this building might look tall at 3 stories, right now with the C1 zone, a hotel or motel of almost about the same height could be built and there would be no planning commission or city council review at all. It would just be a staff review site plan. It's important to point out that there are other uses that could be placed here, which could be as significant an edifice as what you're seeing in this proposal, and without any review whatsoever. It's important to point that out. It's zone C1 that allows hotels, motels up to 25 feet in height. And that's 25 feet above the center line of McCulloch, which is considered the baseline. This project is 28 feet. There's a 3 feet difference. Important to point that out. Want to talk about the parking. The parking for the project is shown as 120 spaces, 78 covered, 26 uncovered, 16 visitor spaces, and includes 5 ADA. Under the current existing code requirement, and that is due to change soon, the City Council approximately 2 weeks ago approved the multifamily parking requirement changes, but they don't take effect for 30 days. And they were already vested because they had a complete application in well before that was even reviewed. So they're under the previous requirements throughout the entire process. They're vested into those rights. So under the previous requirement, which is currently existing still, the number of parking spaces required is 109. They provide 120. So they're overparked for the previous standards that the city had in place since 2016. Now, for the new standards, they are short of that because that significantly ups the parking demand on multifamily going forward. But since they're under the old standards, they are overparked by 11 spaces. Another factor is important to point out. The general plan conformance. In February of 2023, the city council did amend the general plan to change the general plan to high-density residential. That is what it currently is. So there is a incongruity right now between the general plan for this property, which is high-density residential, and the actual zoning, which is C1. The city council did not take action on the zoning request in February of 2023. And the applicant has revised their plan and resubmitted. And that's why it's here before you today. I'm going to advance this to another very important slide. Not there yet. Building elevations. This, it's not color, so don't worry, fret that there's no color on here because that's shown reflected by this slide right here. But the actual elevations as it would be seen from other directions would look like this. If you're looking from across McCulloch, however, the east elevation, you're not even going to see the bottom floor. You're only going to see the top two levels because of the grade difference, and as when they grade it out, there's going to be a 12-foot difference there. So from Delta Drive, however, you will see the more significant edifice. Advance this one more slide. This is very important. This is the Partnership for Economic Development Housing Needs Assessment that was conducted for the city of Lake Havasu in December 2022. And I'm going to go over some of the statistics that were provided in that document initially. The city has only half the statewide average number of multifamily units for workforce housing at 8.4%. Statewide, that's 15.6%. The apartment vacancy rate at the time of the study, which was just in the last year, was 1.5%, indicating high demand but little supply. The National Association of Home Builders Housing Opportunity Index for Mojave County, now it's important to point out, it's Mojave County, not just Lake Havasu, this is the entire county, has declined from 90% in 2012 to approximately 45% in 2022. What that means is the median income family in 2012 could afford 90% of the properties in Mojave County in 2012. Today, countywide, it's only 45% that's affordable. However, in Lake Havasu City specifically, of 575 houses sold in the first 4 months of 2022, only 7 of them sold for less than what a median income family, that's the local workforce, includes a lot of your city employees, could afford. And that's $273,000 based upon a bank's typical 28 to 30% maximum limit for mortgage payment of income. So that's 7 out of 575. That's a significant crisis when it comes to housing that's available for workforce. Principal recommended objective of the study to expand the city's apartment workforce housing inventory with a principal strategy in that study of encouraging infill development. It's the very first strategy. There's others that are more vague and require outside partnerships. But encouraging infill development, which is exactly what this project offers, and is in agreement with the general plan guiding principle LU.1, a balanced land use pattern, which has 2 separate categories in there which support this kind of development. See here. Okay, we'll go back. Mr. Chairman, I think for now, I may have some other comments later, but I think for now, that's a lot of information to digest. So I'm going to turn it back over to you
Is that, okay.
for questions from the commission and hearing from them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Does any of the commissioners have any questions for staff on this item? Commissioner DeZuro.
I had a question. One of the questions that came up last time too was the traffic study, and I know that one was done. Could you expound on what they found with the traffic study that was done on this project?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. The traffic study was conducted by the applicant, and it was reviewed by our public works engineers. And included in your packets is a list of recommendations that our engineering staff from the city has requested of the applicant to agree to address ingress egress from this project. And let me back up a few slides here. So what they include is traffic calming measures on Delta, and there's a number of varieties of measures that could be used for that, from speed tables to signage. That includes turning lanes into the project off of McCulloch, right in, right out from the alley onto McCulloch. One of the comments that came out of the neighborhood meeting that was held on April 11th from the citizens was they did not want a second access onto Delta, which would have been at the southwest corner, approximately here, and that is not shown. Instead, it's off the alley. And so one of the other recommendations is that alley improvements be provided it's a 30-foot wide right-of-way, and that's enough right-of-way to put sufficient two-way traffic improvements out to McCulloch in that alleyway. And let's see, so the study did find some basic issues that need to be remedied. Public Works provided specific recommendations, which are in the packet, and those have been requested to be agreed to by the applicant as part of this project before it gets to City Council.
I have a question.
Commissioner Ballard.
If the zoning is changed to the requested zoning without consideration of what's being built there, what is the setbacks off of McCulloch?
The building's going to be over 50 feet from McCulloch's right away.
But as far as, it looks like the parking that's structured there would encroach into what would normally be a setback area. So my question is, what is the setback area? And if there's going to be a wall built along there, is the wall going to be how far back from the street?
Okay, the wall would have to be on private property. There's a 10-foot landscape buffer that's required. Parking does not have the same setback as a building. The structures have minimum required setbacks for multifamily districts, and of course it's PD, so that can be altered. They're not requesting any setback variances for the structure. They're not requesting any variation or intrusions into the landscaped area. So the retaining wall will be in the landscaped area, as well as whatever landscaping they provide. They'll have to meet city code at the time it's provided with the site plan for review.
So the adjoining property that remains C1, what is the setback for that property on McCulloch Boulevard?
I will refer to our development code here, and I can tell you what the C1 standards are. The C1 setback standards, minimum depth, all right, in C1, there is no minimum depth of front yard, side yard, or rear yard. The maximum height of primary building, 25 feet.
Thank you.
So it can be zero lot line development in C1 zone.
Mr. Stevenson.
Mr. Gilbert, what type of precedents do we have with other developments in Lake Havasu that have this type of density per acreage? Is there anything else that you're aware of that we've gone to 37 units an acre?
We have other apartment complexes which have in the vicinity of 100 units, which have a higher density. Most of the apartment complexes in Havasu are smaller, averaging 16 units for the whole complex. But we do have some on Lake Havasu Boulevard, which have a little bit over 100 units that are higher density like that, similar to this, yes. This particular property has been vacant for decades. There's one commercial building on this entire development. As you see here, the extent of the number of lots. There is one development to the southeast of this proposed area, approximately here. And it is a dog grooming and dog overnighting commercial facility. And there's been no other economic development on this property since.
When the city council failed to make a motion on this, the feedback that I remember from the city council was the density was the issue. But they didn't really give us any clear guidelines as to what they wanted to see that reduced, did they? Or am I missing something?
That's correct. They reduced the density from the 41 they were asking for to 36.1, although they're asking for 37.1. And staff's okay with that because, again, this is a concept plan. There needs to be a tiny bit of flexibility without substantial change to the plan. And we believe that's okay to put a 37.1 limit, allow them a 1 unit per acre flexibility on the project.
I have a couple of questions. So one of the things at that council meeting was there was a big concern, and I think rightfully so, on the traffic in and out on McCulloch. So I don't know if we've addressed it with this or not, but also, what is the old standard was 109 on the parking? You said, what would the new be? What is the new going to be that this property does not have to fall under?
Well, if this was a brand new submittal coming in a month from today, because it takes 30 days for the ordinance to take effect, and it was just recently approved a few days ago. If this comes in, let's say this came in a month from today, then there would be 28 more spaces required.
Okay.
There are 11 over the old standard, but they would be 28 under the new.
Okay. And can you go back on some slides? I wanted to ask a question where you had the views from Delta and from McCulloch, and you kind of just go.
Which slide?
Keep going. Keep going. No, maybe it's the other direction, I guess. Keep going. Keep going. More. Keep going. Right there.
Oh, this one, last one?
No, keep going where you're at. Right there.
One, okay.
You had mentioned, and I couldn't hear what you said. There's something about Delta. You said the Delta would have the, what did you say about, you said something here about the Delta view would be something.
Right. The Delta view would be
which is where on this? There's a lot of stuff on this.
Delta kind of dog legs. So there's two views.
Okay.
You have the south elevation and you have the west elevation. And if you look, the very top, it would be the longest view, and that's the south elevation, but that's from the commercial. The next one down, the east elevation, would be from McCulloch, and you wouldn't see the bottom floor. That's this one right here.
Mm-hmm.
The west elevation would be visible from the dogleg south. Here, let me go back one slide. Would be visible from here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the north elevation, which would be visible from here. Now, it's important also to note that this is R3 multifamily. This is not a single family district that's adjacent, although there are some single family homes that are in there. Mm-hmm. It is an R2 duplex zone that those were built in. So that is a duplex, partly rental zone, and the R3 is also a rental zone. It's just higher density. R1 you don't get to till back here. So you're looking at approximately 200 feet in distance to there. And this R2 zone, so you're looking about close to 200 feet till you get to R1 single family homes up here as well. So there's a significant setback to residential. There's a 50-foot setback from the building to the edge of the right of way for Delta, and also 50 feet to McCulloch, 50 feet to Delta here. And that's just on their own property. So there's a significant distance setback that's being exercised by the applicant for their project.
And do we know when this property, this piece of land was purchased by the current owner?
That I do not know, but they are here present, and I'm sure
Okay, well,
they'll be
I'll
able
ask
to
that
answer that
question to
question.
Any other questions? Okay, is the applicant here? And would like to please come up to the podium and spell your last name for the record.
DERU.
Anyone
Last
from
name.
the commission would like to address the Commissioner Zero?
Daru.
Good morning. How are you? I was wanting to know, in the proposal, it says that there would be no short-term or vacation rentals from this property, that was mainly meant for people who live here to rent these apartments for, their own family life. How do we how are you going to guarantee that that's occurring? Is it staying in your hands or?
Yeah, correct. That would
Okay.
be only for that only.
Okay, so you're not planning?
That's the whole, what the
Okay.
project's for,
Okay,
is for affordable workforce people.
okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Ballard?
Mr. Drew, whereabouts on the site plan is the covered parking?
Because we've done some changes, I'm not sure.
Is it,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I can show you on the overhead.
Mr. Gilbert.
There you go.
If you watch the arrow, the covered parking is along here, here, and here. What is not covered is the area off McCulloch and this area here. This is also covered. This area right here is not covered, and this area is not covered. All the rest is, and the handicap. All the rest is.
so the parking then along McCulloch Boulevard, how high is the fence? With the fence that's being built, the wall that's being built, is that going to be sufficiently high to cover the parked cars?
Yeah, because I don't have to be retaining because it's going to be basically 10 to 12 feet below that, the McCulloch. So yeah, that'll have to be a retaining wall there.
From how far above McCulloch would it be?
It'll vary because that road slopes, the high point to low point. So
Well, my question would be,
approximately,
my question being, if you were driving down McCulloch Boulevard and you looked
approximately a couple feet probably, just because
just
you
a
got to get
couple
above
feet?
you got to get
so
above the dirt line.
So the parked cars behind that would show?
No, not
They
at
would
all.
be too low, they would be lower?
Oh yeah, significantly lower.
Mr. Stevenson, Commissioner?
Mr. Drew, I suppose in your conceptual drawings and working the math on all of this, you're trying to balance cost to improve this property versus what the market will bear with rents. What are you kind of using for a target for rents on these units?
As far as price per unit?
Yes.
Well, that depends because the market changes so much, you know what I mean? Material changes so much, but it's going to be significantly lower than what you can rent for sure anywhere in town. That's our goal. So anybody can afford it, right?
Any
'Cause
kind of,
the-
and I just ask that because we keep throwing around this word affordable, and affordable may mean 2,500 to one couple and 1,500 to another couple. And I guess I'm just trying to wrap my arms around what the definition is. And I certainly understand you're trying to balance that, but we've got to have some sort of target that we're leaning towards
Okay.
rent-wise. I mean, are we looking at 3 bedrooms renting from 1,500 to 1,700 or 2,000? I'm just curious.
Okay, so the idea is, because there's single, double, and 3 bedroom, right? So somewhere between 8 to 950 for single. I'm just going to throw this out because that's kind of a target, right? I'd say like 1150, 12 for 2, and up to 15 for a 3 bedroom, somewhere around there.
The question.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
Because you're asking for an additional 3 foot over the 25-foot grade that's allowed, you're asking for a 3 foot difference. Have you considered this project as a 2-level project rather than a 3-level?
Well, I'd say that one story below the ground, but I think the height is, I think we're actually 2 feet below. Aren't we 2 feet below the original height, Mike?
My understanding, we're 3 foot above the commercial requirement.
Yeah, if you're going to, yeah, please, thank you. And state your name and spell your last name, please.
Name is Mac Hall, Hall, with Iris Development. From my understanding, we are 3 foot above the commercial requirement, but
Correct.
2 foot above the zoning requirement. Zoning requirement is 30 feet below. So so that 30 feet comes from the center line of McCulloch. That's why we're recessing the site 12 to 14 feet to meet that requirement.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I had the question I asked earlier, when was this property purchased?
About a year and a half ago,
Okay,
approximately. I don't have the exact month, but approximately that, yeah.
okay. Any other questions by the commissioners? Mr. Lear?
Are there any recommendations from the traffic study or from actually Public Works comments regarding the traffic study that would change the concept in any substantial fashion.
Run that by me one more time. I didn't hear the first part of that. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Speak up a little bit.
Oh, okay. There we go.
There you go.
How's that? Thanks. Are there any recommendations from the engineering department related to the traffic study that would make the concept as represented here altered to any extent?
This is Mac again. No,
Speak into the mic, please.
sorry. The only improvements would be along Delta, McCulloch, and Chimwavy. So nothing would affect the site plan as it sits right now. There'll also be improvements along the alley on our side, and also improvements along Delta for the full right-of-way along the property also. But nothing will affect the layout as it sits.
Okay. One other question, related to the trash enclosure position at the corner of Delta and McCulloch. How do you envision screening that from view so that pedestrians walking along the sidewalk aren't looking down into a nasty enclosure?
Having, probably the only way to really do that is to be covered. But it's going to sit, like I said, 11 to 12 feet below McCulloch. So we can always look at another spot for that if that becomes a concern from the commission.
And you also have a landscape buffer
10
that
feet.
potentially could
Correct.
help
Yeah, we
screen
got,
that
so
from
yeah,
view
that wall is
also.
going to be 10 feet off of McCulloch.
Right.
So if you walk on a sidewalk, you got 10 feet, and then you have the, right iron fence probably on top of the wall, and then you have the wall, the retaining wall by itself.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Also, yeah, we forgot, there's going to also be a screen wall on top of the retaining wall. So you have a 6-foot screen wall that's going to go around on top of the retaining wall. So that's how the trash closure will be obscured from view.
Right. I think an interesting advantage actually of this site plan related to what could be there under a C1 is that with the setbacks, majority of the building area that's proposed here is where the parking in common would typically occur. And so in reality, your view corridors are much expanded with what's proposed here than what potentially could be built under a C1 zoning.
All right, any more questions by the commissioners to the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to address the commission on this item? Please, if so, please come to the podium, state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Angela Murphy, Murphy. And I am an owner of one of the units on Delta. And I'm not sure if there was any kind of an assessment of what the neighborhood is like currently, but my renters have told me that they will be moving if this moves forward. And that will be a hardship on me, and I'm sure a hardship on them, because they have no interest whatsoever in smelling the trash, in being confined even more than they already are, because the traffic is pretty horrific. And if they were not fully employed, they'd be here today to represent themselves. So I'll need to find new renters, and it'll be an imposition for me because I don't know who will want to live across from a 78-unit complex. The question is not if there would be something built on this C1 land. It was when, and then what would be built. And the assumption was it was going to be a Dunkin' Donuts, it was going to be a car wash, it was going to be something that had traffic through it, but certainly not something that had families living there that had no room for their children to play and no room for the trash. And 1.5 cars per unit is certainly not what my current renters have. They have many vehicles, and I have rules for them that they can't park on the rocks. They have to be in the driveway or in the garage so that it's a nice, homey neighborhood. And it's filled with military members and former police, and a very, very nice setting right now. And they're comfortable where they're at. And there is one renter on the block that is very aware of what's happening in the city and understands that it is going to be driven by Section 8. And I don't know if that's a rumor. I don't know if that's real. I haven't really gotten an answer on it. And that will definitely be an issue. I have had issues with other renters that I had to have evicted because it was troublesome. And I'd like to state once again, I did in the February meeting, that there's plenty of room on the very north end of town. There's plenty of room on the very south end of town. And I don't understand why in a 2-acre area that should have been 20 units per acre, we're almost at double that. I just don't understand. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission from the public? Please step to the podium and state your name for your record and spell your last name, please.
Hi, I'm Crystal Patterson, Patterson, and I live on Chimawavy Boulevard. My major concern here, it's a beautiful building. I like that the developer went back and made some changes. However, the density requirement to go to 37.1, I don't believe is right for this city. If we do this here on this 2-acre lot, they're going to do it on the next 2-acre lot next to it. And then we have pockets all throughout the city where the same sort of thing's going to happen. This type of density, I don't believe is what McCullough thought for Lake Havasu City. It's more designed for something in Long Beach or New York or Portland, but to stack people up with no facilities around them, no bus transportation on that road, no park for the children, no place to, throw a basketball, this is going to be an issue for the city. And this will just be the start to the next 37 units per acre and the next 37 units per acre spread throughout. And it's not going to be these people here next time. It's going to be another set of neighbors going, why are they putting this giant apartment complex with no facilities to take care of the people there in the middle of their neighborhood? Because we all got our little pockets of neighborhood. And what they're requesting here on this density is just not right for the city. Totally for affordable housing. Understand we've got to build it, but to put it in the middle, even though we got a 1-layer boundary of R2, half of that is single-family residential homes. It's not a true, quote, buffer per planning's architecture. That's one little layer. So we're just opening up the door to really cause some issues in the city that I don't want to see happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name, spell your last name for the record, please.
My name is Michael Powers, Powers. I live on Chimawavy.
Speak up a little bit, please.
Okay. I live on Chimawavy Boulevard. This project, I would like to know the east elevation. What is the actual visual height of the east elevation? I can't read the writing there.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Gilbert,
for me.
yeah.
What is the height of the building?
Which view, sir?
The east elevation, what is the height of the
That's
building?
the one off of McCullough.
It says number
right
2
here.
right there, east elevation.
Yes.
What is the overall height of the building? That's the view that the people, the residents, are going to look at from their front doors.
That overall height is building parapet height at just over 39 feet from the finished floor of the building.
So
Which
basically 40
is-
feet tall.
Down 12 feet from McCullough.
Not on the east elevation. The west elevation it is. Okay.
Actually,
so-
it's reversed.
all right. So the west elevation is 40 feet tall,
Yes.
essentially.
39, yes.
Okay. And then going down the south elevation, on the right-hand side, it's going to be, the grade's going to be 12 feet up on the building, but on the left-hand side, it's going to be 40 feet. That's huge. What's the maximum limit on the building height? Per code?
Sorry?
What is the maximum height on the building per code?
Per code, and our code allows for grading down when you have a grade difference based off of McCullough. They're allowed 30 feet, and with the 12-foot downgrade, with a grading down.
Okay,
that'll-
so you're taking the total height of the
42.
building from the highest part of the lot.
Sir, our development code allows for
Now,
that.
I'm just trying to put it
So
in
we cannot
perspective
tell
so
the developer
everybody.
not to do
I'm
that.
trying to put it in perspective here so everybody understands how high this building is actually going to be sitting on the lot.
Highest point from finished floor is 39 feet.
Right.
That's at
And
any
from the
point.
surrounding area, I'm trying to put it in concept for everybody here.
If
The
you're,
actual view of the building is going to be 40 feet. That's way higher. You can
if you're,
You can,
sir,
you can
if you're,
sit here and tell me that you're going to measure it from the center of McCullough Boulevard, which is the highest part of the project. Okay? So yes, you're going to excavate 12 feet, put the building in there. From standing in the center of McCullough, it's going to look like a two-story building. But from everywhere around it, it's going to be 40 feet tall.
it's going to be 39 feet if you're standing next to the building all the way around it. That
From
is
finished
correct.
floor, 39 feet. You know, so
Just
I'm
the person at the
generalizing
mic,
here.
please. Yeah.
I'm generalizing here. Okay? So the actual view that everybody in that neighborhood's going to see is a monster building. Okay? You're doubling
39 feet.
You're doubling the density from 20 to 37.1. So you're nearly doubling the density.
Okay, your 5 minutes is up.
Okay, thank you for
All
listening.
right, thank you. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Sheila Murphy, Murphy. My question is, can you go back to the track map, please?
You speak into the mic when you're talking.
The track map? Okay,
That
that's
one?
good. When you look at this property, they are using McCulloch as their address now. But if you actually look, and that's what they're using, their height and the depth and everything else. But if you actually look at this property and the size of it, you're only looking at 6, 7, 8, and 9 is McCulloch Boulevard. That is less than a third of what the whole dimension is. Why aren't they using the height on Delta? Why aren't they using the height at the alleyway as their 25-foot height? They're not. They're using McCulloch because McCulloch has a grading on it, and they can facilitate this 39 feet. Why aren't they? Because if you actually were to put a building into, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4 lots, that would be Delta. And at that point, you could only be 25 feet. Why aren't they using that instead of McCulloch? Because this building would not fit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Brian Strahl, S-T-R-A-H-L. And my concern, well, first off, I don't think anyone around us has a problem with apartments going there. Our biggest concern is the density that's going to go there. And Mr. Stevenson, I don't think your answer is actually, when you asked a question of, do we have a precedence in Lake Havasu for this? I want to say that the person that was answering you probably should have said no, because we don't want to set the precedence for Lake Havasu to every 2-acre lot. A builder can come in and supersede what we have. We have these density ratings for a reason. Mr. McCulloch never intended on a 3-story, 40-foot building to go in the middle of a residential area. Other concerns on this too is just we take a density at that level. In that drawing that's up on the board right now, where are these kids going to go? Because families, we talk about growing families in Lake Havasu, there's no place for the kids to go. And if we look at some of the statistics in this city as far as crime and damage and vandalism, you're going to see quite a bit on the south side down by Bashes, where those apartments are at. So these citizens that live around this area, they knew They knew darn well that they were buying in a commercial area. And I think everyone was fine with that. Everyone's okay with this going to residential multifamily. But what we're not okay with is skirting the rules for builders. The builder bought this land as commercial land. He took the risk, right? And in the citizens meeting before the February council meeting, the builder strictly was asked, how come you don't do something as a 2-story building, less density? And the answer was because it would not make enough money. When it comes down to it, that's not our problem. So don't put the burden of the builder's promises or whoever he had promises with on the citizens in our area. I would love to see that lot developed. I'd love to see that lot have apartments on there for people to live there or to help the businesses. But when it comes down to it, our businesses and everything else, they charge the California rates for the contractors, but they're not paying the California wages. So maybe we should look at that too versus just lowering the cost for our housing. And they said that it's not going to be Section 8. It won't be low income. Some of these studies we talked about December 22, if you guys pay attention to the news, our markets are changing. So as soon as our markets change and those apartments can't be filled with people that are working here, where do you think we're going to turn to fill that apartment? We're going to apply for federal Section 8 to fill those apartments. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jason DeRue. We're developing the property.
Spell your last name, please.
DeRue, D-E-R-U. The main concerns have been brought up here. Can I build the same exact building right now today? Is my question. And it is yes. I can build that exact same building. Don't have to go through any of the zoning. Don't do anything. I just have to call it a hotel. That's the only difference. And what's the difference at a hotel? Hotels have a time of 2 a.m. That means the noise ordinance is 2 a.m. It could also, right now, if I put it to residential, now it's 10 p.m. like everyone else. It quiets down the neighborhood. Do you make more money? No. It really, am I going to see money? Is anybody see money off this? No. The reason we're doing it is to develop, to have workforce housing. I mean, you're only talking, $1,500 rents. This building's an $18 million build. Start dividing that out by 76. It doesn't come out in my favor.
Let's address the commission, please.
It doesn't come out in our favor to do this. You know what I mean? It only comes down to we need workforce. Somebody said build on the north end. I've looked at other properties. You can build other properties everywhere else. It costs $4 million for the minimum property. $4 million. That means your housing rate is now huge. I mean, now you're talking $2,500 to $3,000 rents. People can't afford that in this town. So this is the reason. But we can put the same exact building here. I can do the same thing as Pink Hotel, and all I gotta do is label it short-term housing, and it's the exact same thing. So, I mean, we're just trying to get something going somewhere for people in this town. Right now, this is a year out. We're already in trouble. We're years out right now. We need housing in this town bad. And that's all I gotta say, yes.
My name is Steve Bernier, B-E-R-N-I-E-R.
Thank you.
And I'd like to go back to the elevations. So from what I'd like to know is from McCulloch to the dogleg of Delta, what is the drop in elevation?
12 feet.
12 feet. So you're going to recess on McCulloch 12 feet down? Is that what they're telling me?
Yes.
So that means on the dog leg on Delta, the building's going to be 39 or 40 foot tall?
It's going
Is that correct?
It's going to look like this right here. That's what you're going to see.
But aren't they going to build up the lot on that curve to accommodate that drop in Delta?
I don't understand your question.
In other words, Delta drops down as it comes to the curve.
Yes.
So when they drop it down on McCulloch, you're saying 12 feet. So that's going to be at level ground at that point, or is there going to be retaining area built up to accommodate the drop on Delta?
I would leave that question for the applicant's engineer. I do believe
Because the way I
that
understood
it's
it
gonna
from
be
the
very
last
close to
meeting, there
level.
was going to be a buildup on that curve to accommodate the 39-foot high. So that means the building would be well over 40 feet at that end of the street.
I'll
Am
leave
I
that
correct?
for the developer's engineer, Mr. Chairman.
I'm asking the question.
You'd like to, yes, please address the question, please, from the public.
Mac again with Iris. That is correct. There will be a retaining wall along the Delta side. And the reason for that is to keep that entrance off of Delta as close to McCulloch as possible. If we move that entrance down to match grade, on the thing, that entrance would come down farther and farther and farther down Delta. So to keep that entrance as close to McCulloch, we kept that at 12 feet and that's why you have a retaining wall along that dog leg of Delta in the alley.
Thank you.
It's approximately 6 feet in elevation, that retaining wall.
Okay, so that means that at that point, that building from the street level is going to be 45 feet tall. Is that correct? It's too tall.
Okay.
Hi, Brian May, M-A-Y. I don't know if you guys have taken into account the traffic that's going to come off of the development that you guys have approved for Window Rock, where you also increase the density over there for the housing. So that's 2 blocks basically south on McCullough, where Window Rock traffic's going to be coming out. So now you're going to have Window Rock development plus this development. You guys have had problems with traffic in the past on other developments. Look at Cherry Tree. Now you guys are looking at Bison. Your development of Starbucks over there on Lake Havasu Avenue, you guys had to change the traffic plan now and use resources to change everything over on there. So traffic's going to be a big issue with that, that density. And then giving concessions to developers over here has the perception that there's backdoor deals. And with the city council, the planning commission, everything else with some of the developers in town, it has a perception of things that don't look right. So thank you.
Well, sir, perception is not based in reality. There's no backdoor deals. Go ahead, ma'am. You can bring the mic. There you go.
My name is Bertha Bernier. I've done a lot of.
Can you spell your last name, please?
B as in boy, E-R-N-I-E-R. My husband just spoke. I'm a homeowner on Delta. And as he said, 45 feet, that is smack right in front of my home. What am I going to see when I walk out my door? Nothing. I know some of you are for this building. I'm not against a building. I'm not against the workforce living there. I'm just against the density. Like the other owner of the property stated that her renters will leave. When this first happened, my husband and I listed our house for sale because we figured this was the time. Then we realized we couldn't afford to buy another house. We're not paying rent now. I mean, we own the home. We wouldn't be able to with today's prices, so we're being a whole different circumstance. Now, this building goes up. It's going to lower the value of our home. And I'm getting older, eventually it'll be my kids, it'll be their problem, but it's still something no one in here wants. It's just too tall. I don't want to come out of my house and see a 45-foot building. You might as well just take one of the hotels here. One of you gentlemen mentioned that on Lake Havasu Boulevard, there was a hotel that's 3-story. That's where they belong. They don't belong in our residential areas. This is a lot of people's opinion, and I hope you listen to the people and not just, it should be our vote too, not just council members, because it is our town just like yours. And I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner Lair.
I'd just like to, I think there might be a misunderstanding. And if I'm wrong, great, I'll own it. But I'm hearing the height stated as 45 feet, and the max building height is 39 feet. And the site is cut into the corner at McCulloch and Delta, so it's effectively down from that corner. It's not raised up. So at no point, and correct me if I'm wrong, at no point is the building 45 feet tall.
Okay, I didn't say that.
My name's Patty Simonek, Simonek, and I'm in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
I've owned my home since the year 2001. It's a great neighborhood. It's quiet. I do walk around on Delta, and it's very, very mellow, very nice. McCulloch and Chemehuevi has been quite busy, just that intersection, different times of the year and certain things, and there's been some accidents. So I'm thinking there would have to be some sort of a four-way stop or some sort of traffic restrictions coming out of the alleyway. With that height, all these folks that have developed their yards over the years and decades, putting pools and building walls so they have their privacy. And they can go out in their pool and enjoy their yard. You're going to have people just looking out over you. So the height, it just gives them all a bird's eye view of what everybody has everywhere and what they're doing in their own yards. You get it down lower in the community where the elevations are lower and you're not overlooking everybody's backyard. That's a huge difference. And just my last point, affordable and low income housing, it's a fine line.
Please address the commission. Yeah.
Saying affordable and not being low income, I'm not sure you can say we're going to do affordable housing without already going through the channels to do low income. I think that's a fine line to be saying that. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to address?
Hi, my name is Sandy Lawrence, Lawrence. I am on the block after Chemehuevi, and I just wanted to raise a concern in regards to, again, the traffic that is out there. They did put a speed limit signage out there on the McCulloch that day. I've seen them that actually pass at 55 miles per hour and going there with an apartment complex trying to get out on McCulloch. I cannot get out of Churchill going up to McCulloch anymore, and sat there and watched a school bus for the safety of the children trying to get out on McCulloch just the other day from Churchill. It actually goes into an incline from Chemehuevi to Churchill, a blind spot around the corner. And none of this seems to be taking a consideration on not only the children's safety that are in this apartment complex, but people driving. There is more of a retirement community here at times with the snowbirds coming in. And my concern again is safety, the density as well. If there's rules to those, they're supposed to be applied, but I'm not sure exactly how that works. I just want to talk about the safety and trying to get out of my neighborhood with the depreciation of homes that are going to happen here. And I just am not in agreement with it. I think there can be more changes made in regards to this development. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nancy Clapp, CLAPP.
Thank you.
I didn't really have any planned comments because I wasn't going to speak. We live a few blocks off of this development. Like everybody has said here, we're not against do a 20 unit, don't do 85.5% over what the zoning is for. He addressed R2. There is R2 in that area, but it's single story. It's not 40 or 39 feet, right? It's single story. When we built our house, just to put a 10-foot door on it, we had to dig our property down 2 feet because they wouldn't let us go over the 15-foot max height in a residential area. So all of a sudden, we're giving him an 85.5%. I mean, just be fair. You know what you hold us to, hold them to. We all built into that area or bought into that area because we knew it was commercial. Pet Paradise went in there. We were expecting maybe a convenience store, whatever, an urgent care. I mean, if they want to build a hotel, let them build a hotel. We won't be here because it's zoned for that. For him to start a project, buy land cheap, right? And then he wants everybody to change, not just commercial, but then he wants to change it to high density. And now he wants variances. And the biggest thing is he wants density change. Why did he buy a project and plan to build a project? And half the answers can't even be answered here, right? I still don't know how far the car's off of McCullough. Parking. I still don't get it. I mean, they think the rent's going to be this thing. They know. How can you build a project and not know? You know, nobody would be here if he wants to build a hotel. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else want to address from the public? Please approach the podium, state your name for the record, and spell your last name, please.
My name is Larry Ferguson, and I live on Delta Drive, Ferguson.
Thank you, sir.
What I want to know is who votes on this? Do you people all vote on this?
So the way it works, sir, we make a recommendation, and the final vote of yay or nay, it goes to the city council. So we could vote all no, they could vote yes. We could vote yes, they could vote no, or we could both agree. But we just make a recommendation that goes to the city council. I believe this one's on the docket for a meeting in October, I believe.
Was there still 3 people missing? Are they all here now?
They're all, we've got a
Okay, you're all here now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Yes, sir, please. Oh, no. Anyone else?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rob Sampson.
Spell your last name, please.
Sampson.
Thank you.
In fairness, I'm working with the development team, but so I want to make sure that's out there for everybody. As a local business owner, the hardest thing that we have to do is find employees that will come to work in Lake Havasu. Not because we're not a great city and not because we don't have a lot of opportunities, because it's hard to find housing. A lady come from Mexico on a TN working visa, and she didn't have a place to stay. She said, I got here, I thought that was something you guys were going to take care of. So we found her a place that day. It was an extended stay hotel for $1,800 per month. And if we didn't sign it that day, it was going to be $2,100 by the end of the day. This is a real problem, and I sympathize with homeowners. I'm actually in a neighborhood just down the street from this, and I can understand both sides of each argument. This is a challenging topic you guys have to talk about today. And it is something that is not going to be solved by this one development by any means. Just understand, the city has approached many influential business owners in this town to try and address this very issue. And not one of them has said, I will do it. Not one of them has walked up and said, let me take on this. May lose money, it may break even, but I'll do it. And the DeRues have come forward and said, look, we can do this. We have employees that we need to house as well. We would like to have a place for them to be. My employees have 1 car each. We pay a very significant salary. Not one of them has more than 1. You're welcome to come to my parking lot and check it out. I'll show you. It's just the reality. This is housing for young professionals. Everyone is fearful of the unknown. I totally get that. And this is something that we could benefit, in my opinion, as a city. Where do you want to put it? You tell me where. Swanson's built out. Most of the property that's available that should have been this was not zoned or wasn't restricted enough to allow this type of building or force this type of building to be there. There wasn't enough foresight in the zoning code and in order to make this development be housed somewhere else. Now we have the opportunity for someone to come in, put their own money up. I mean, I don't have $18 million. I don't know if any of you have $18 million, but this is a significant investment into the community. So it's something to think about. And I get it's a neighborhood, and that's not something, if you say yes or no, we're here to accept your response. But I really do think this is an issue we need to address.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Tina Corson, Corson, and I hadn't planned on speaking either, but I'd just like to throw my 2 cents in as well. I live about a block off of this, And I also just don't think it's right that they get the density of 37.1. They bought it knowing what the zoning was. This is, mostly just single families. It's a nice, quiet, peaceful neighborhood. And this would change the whole fabric of the neighborhood. Not only the way it looks, but the way it sounds, the traffic. It would just change it completely. And so I hope that you will listen to us and not change the zoning from what it is currently zoned at. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission on this? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Patterson, Patterson. I hope that you see what this room is full of. This is full of investors in our city, okay? People that live here full time, who shop here, who attend, our patrons of our restaurants, our stores, our local businesses. This response should speak loudly to you. It's not a matter, and everybody has said it. It's not a matter of not wanting people to be able to live here, okay? Because we were all afforded the right to be able to live here and the privilege to live here. I came from a city in California that did exactly this, where they changed the zoning and it turned into high density. And it snowballed. It snowballed into other areas, maybe blighted areas or areas where you might have had a small patch of land and the developers they were offering money to homeowners who then sold their properties and then had it rezoned, and now you have these high density projects. If this is something that you are really truly looking to build for the sake of our workers, okay, this needs to be closer to where those workers are going to be working. Okay, this area is so far off the beaten path. That's why, like Swanson, it's so popular, because a lot of these younger people or families that have a single vehicle, they can carpool, they can get to their jobs, they could walk to their jobs. This is so far off the beaten path that I would see something like this being further down into the city area, where where they work is more accessible for these people that are looking for housing that work here in the city. So just take into consideration the public opinion that you've got going on here. You really, for the sake of a developer with kind of a flippant attitude, well, you could have this. And it's like, so we're supposed to be grateful for this? I mean, we're grateful that we have an opportunity for somebody that wants to build homes, build housing. But if we downsized it a little bit more, yeah, they're not going to make a whole lot of money on it. But if what they're really doing it for is to provide housing to our local employees, our local workers, then I think maybe we should consider a different plan. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from public? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment and bring it back for staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we heard a lot of comments from the developer, their team, and the public regarding this project. And of course, my lengthy presentation earlier. I think it's important to point out that to explain my presentation as staff, we do the best we can as staff members when we make presentations on planning and zoning matters, both to Planning Commission and the City Council. to review a project that comes to the city. The applicant submits an application, we review it, and we look and see how our codes and our general plan apply to the project. And so when we do that review, we take a neutral approach and we look at how it complies. That's why the public hearing aspect is added into this, so the public has a chance to put their input in. But staff looks at it from a neutral, does it meet code standards, does it meet our general plan viewpoint? And that being said, this particular project, after we reviewed it for compliance, and the applicant does have the opportunity to apply for a PD zone, and that happens many times in the city. Many rezones, many of them are PDs that are reviewed. If you go back through the City Council and Planning Commission past meetings as planned developments. So this is a very common tactic used for commercial, for multifamily, for other uses even. So that being said, on this particular project, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for Land Use Action 23-3954 for a planned development rezone for 740, 730, 720, 710, 700, and 670 Delta Drive, and 681, 691, 701 McCulloch Boulevard South, Tract 2222, Block 5, Lots 1 through 9, from limited commercial C1 district to multiple family planned development RMPD district, allowing a maximum density increase from 20 dwelling units per acre to 37.1 dwelling units per acre with the following conditions. Number one, the property shall substantially match the conceptual site plan provided with the request. And that pertains, a little more input here, that pertains to the entire proposal that has been presented by the applicant today. Any substantial change to what has been presented tonight will be required to come back through the review process. Number two, building permits and design review for compliance with city codes, including the Lake Havasu City Public Works Department. Traffic impact comments will be required prior to development of the property. And we have asked the applicant to agree to the Public Works Department's traffic improvement requirements that are included in your packets prior to City Council review of the project.
Thank you. Does the applicant understand the recommendations, and or they have any further comments from the applicant? Okay, any further? I have a comment I'm going to make before we open it up for more comments, and then we'll call for a motion in a second. So McCulloch was pretty forward-thinking in his design of this community when he came up with these commercial pods, this is a commercial pod. And so that there would be areas of convenience for residential areas. They wouldn't have to drive all the way down to the center of town. Also, there was a question I asked, and I've talked to many different residents on many different subjects. And one of the things that I've never been a fan of is, and it came up today, was buying a piece of property, knowing it's zoned one way, and then coming right back to try to rezone it to something else. I'm not a fan of that. We have a general plan, and that's what I've always stood by that ground. So, with that said, I'll be voting no on this myself on this person. No clapping, please. No clapping, please. And that's just but I'm one vote. So, with that, I'm going to open it up for further discussion and/or motion.
I have some comments.
Commissioner Ballard.
I too have some serious reluctance in voting for this. I am a commercial realtor. I understand property rights. So I understand the right for someone to purchase a piece of property and they reserve the right to do what they can do on that property. I fully understand and support that. However, in this particular instance, my biggest problem here is the density issue. I have to agree that our limitations that we have put on multifamily for a density at 20 per acre was put there for a reason. That's the way most of the people in town have developed it. I understand the need for affordable or workforce housing. That's very important, but you can't keep throwing everything under the bus to accommodate one area where you know there's a need. There's a need on all sides. I have a problem with the height variation. I do not believe that having this height of a building in that neighborhood is the right thing to do. I believe that putting multifamily dwellings is a good use for that, and I would vote for that void change in a minute, but not at 78 unit density. It would have to be much less than that for me. And again, I have a problem with the traffic flow. I believe that adding this many units to this type of residential neighborhood is going to cause a problem. So in deference to the current residents, I cannot support this project.
Any other comments, commissioners?
Question for staff. If the developer were to leave this as C1, what would the density be if he were building a hotel per acre?
I'm sorry?
If this were to be a hotel, what would the density per acre be?
Well, there's really no density per acre for commercial. There's no setbacks on commercial structures. The heights, the maximum height is 25 feet. And that could be adjusted by grading down as well, because code allows that. So it could be a potentially nearly 40-foot building as well, if it was a hotel.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Chairman.
Commissioner Zero.
This is a difficult situation because I've been on the commission now for about a year and a half, and we've multiple times had projects come up trying to put something out there for attainable housing for people that work here, that are waitresses, our teachers, our officers, all of that. And what we get are people that come in and say, I'm not against it, but just not near me. And I understand it. It's difficult. How do we balance the fact that we are 90% built out in this city? What the builder was talking about is true. There's not a lot of land. If you drive around, you see some open areas, but most of that, we are landlocked by federal and state land, and they don't like to sell. And when they do sell, they make you pay through the nose. This happened in California a lot. I was a planning commissioner in California for 4 years. A lot of that happened, and we're landlocked with that. So they can't go too far outside the city to put housing. So we're having to look at what we have here in town. And we just approved a rezone for someone who just bought a lot and changed it to put a single family home on. It happens. And we want people to have a place to live. If we want to live here as retirees and people who are snowbirds and want to come and enjoy this, we have to have younger people helping us by serving us our food, by teaching our children, by hoping our kids are staying here when they graduate from high school and they're taking off because there aren't the opportunities. So part of it's a very difficult balance. How do we balance what we've got? I like the fact that they're looking at around $800 to $1,500 for the pricing. I think that's reasonable and not low income, but it is a reasonable price for someone who's working full time, trying to find a place to live. I understand when you're looking out and you've had pretty much a vacant lot and suddenly you don't have a vacant lot. I've had that happen numerous times in town. It's not fun. I had that happen to me when I was with my previous homes. But the general plan we have grown enormously in the last 30 years. Those of you that have lived here have seen the exponential growth that's occurred in town. You were 10, 15,000 people for decades. Suddenly we're almost 70,000 people. There's a place for that. We get 800,000 visitors a year in the hotels. They could build this hotel. The height would be exactly what this is, and you would have transient people in and out, in and out, in and out, because there is a need for hotels in town. We have plenty, but people still want more to come visit Havasu because we're a great place. So I'm torn between, I am listening to you, I understand your concerns. I think the builder has, because this came up to us before. We can raise concerns. He did drop the density. He kept the parking that he had at the time because we were worried about parking on the streets, and that seems to have been alleviated. And I'm not with I don't know any developers in town except the one guy that built my house. That's it. I don't have any connection with builders. I don't have any affinity or anything against them. I'm trying to look at this as objectively as I can, and it's difficult because we just had, if you read the paper, that we just did a housing study, and people cannot, 60% of the people in Havasu can't afford to buy a house. They need places to live, and we're trying to figure this out. And every time we turn around, we hear, this isn't the right project, this isn't the right project. Well, when is it the right project? When is it the right place to be? It's never convenient. It's never going to work right. It's never going to be what I want in my backyard. But at some point, we have to help get housing for the people that work in our city. And so I tend to incline to approve this one or vote for it reluctantly, because I do understand there's going to be some concerns. I do definitely want to make sure they go through the traffic study and that the builder agrees to whatever is recommended with that traffic study to mitigate any in and out that's going on, and that they definitely follow all the city codes. We're not making exceptions on city codes for them. They follow the codes as they're written on there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we really appreciate your guys' opinions, your passion, your unity for sticking together. That's the beauty of this town and being able to speak openly. This is generally a California thing. You can't get like this. You can't be one-on-one and be really open like that. The workforce thing is, it's a big thing. It's a big issue. I don't agree with Section 8 housing. I don't see this development becoming Section 8. There's so much need for our own community. And as Ms. Zero said, like the kids getting out of high school or coming back from college, not being able to afford anywhere to go. The workers that are here, they're so stretched out because the cost of living has gone up, the housing has gone up, so they're stretched out. So I could see a lot of rotation within our own community of people going, wow, okay, I could save a few bucks by getting into this new development and saving some money and leaving some of the higher income people for the higher income housing. So, I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, it really is. And I probably wouldn't be that happy about living around being that built in my neighborhood as well. But as a tight community, we got to look at the bigger picture for the value of our community and the growth and development, because it's happening. So what we really need to do is pay attention to our own workers and our own companies that are here, our own businesses that are here, that are fighting and are having employee struggles because they can't get them. We can't find workers, or it's too hard, or they need too much money because they can't afford a good place to be. So, I mean, I'm a yes on this, and I apologize, for the people that, I hear your opinions, I hear your thoughts, but the bigger picture, it needs this. You can't develop something like this down on Lake Havasu Ave. It would cost way too much, and then they're back in a situation where it's too expensive. But we got a new development, but now we're not taking care of the people that are here that can't afford to live in these higher rent locations, and the cost to build. It would just cost way too much to build something like that, and that's going to go on to the citizens here. This isn't to bring in outside people, bring in outside communities from low income people from other state or from other cities that want to come and find somewhere to live. No, this is for our community. So, I mean, I could see more pros than cons on this. So, but definitely appreciate everybody's passion and unity on this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioners?
Well, sure.
Stevenson?
Everybody else has spoke. I feel like I need to throw my 2 cents in. So if we go back to the track map on this, on the zoning. So on the track map, this was originally set out back by McCulloch and in the early days. And you can see where the building areas on the 6, 7, and 8, and 9 were to be facing McCulloch Boulevard. And if they were to be built, they would be built at that elevation on McCulloch Boulevard. And then lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the backside of Delta would be built according to the lower elevation. The challenge would be the parking in common and the 12-foot slope that you have from McCulloch to Delta, which today it just, nothing works here, right? Without putting these properties together and putting something in there. I go back to the early 80s selling real estate here in Lake Havasu. And the thought was, yes, little mom and pop Dunkin' Donuts, some sort of little shop in these pockets of commercial areas. Unfortunately, as the city has developed and grown, they just don't make sense anymore. So how do we best use this property moving forward? I think what the Drews have put together is a fantastic idea of taking this property, meeting a need within the community, and using something that's just vacant land, sitting, not doing anything with no hope of any future development. The problem is probably the density and just trying to put a little bit too much into this area. And that's the challenge that we have, right, is balancing this out. Property that was originally zoned, developed, and the thought process 50 years ago versus what we're facing today. 50 years ago, we solved all of our housing needs in Lake Havasu with single-family story homes. And if we go back to my early days, we were selling 2-bedroom, 2-bath homes with a carport. Well, that's just not our world anymore, right? If you don't have an RV garage, you're a slum. So how do we keep zoning and the thought from 50 years ago and bridge the gap to the needs that we have today? And I think what the Drews have put together is a good step in that direction. It's just a little too heavy for me. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
So I am also in the real estate industry, the development industry, been involved in multiple projects. And the conversation is put it someplace else. And right, developers are looking, they look at all the vacant land out there. They look at all the stuff, what can we do, whatever. But there's a financial aspect to doing projects such as this or doing any other project, right? I can almost guarantee you with even the density that's there, this is not this developer is going to make money in the first year. Well, probably won't be in the first 10 years. The density, I am assuming, is brought because there's a financial piece involved here. You have to have so many units for it to financially make sense to even get it built. And that's where the difficult thing comes in. Nobody here is opposed to having them there. They just don't want as many. Unfortunately, it doesn't make financial sense with the lower amount, or they probably would have done that. It happens all around town right now, and that's why we don't have the housing we need.
Okay, any more?
Sure.
Mr. Lehr.
My turn, okay. Yeah, I'll be voting in favor of this project. And for me, the rationale is, one, it complies with the parking requirements. It complies with the landscape requirements. And yes, it's a tall building, it's a dense building. But to me, the setback, the fact that the density and the height is positioned in the central portion of the site instead of creating a wall along Delta or McCulloch, like it could do under the C1 zoning, reduces the impact or negative impact from my perspective.
I think we heard from everybody, right? All right, so I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Motion.
Commissioner DeZero?
Okay, make a motion that we recommend to the City Council a request for a planned development rezone for 740, 730, 720, 710, 700, and 670 Delta Drive, and 681, 691, and 701 McCulloch Boulevard South, Track 2222, Block 5, Lots 1 through 9, from limited commercial C1 district to a multiple family planned development RMPD district, allowing a maximum density increase from 20 dwelling units per acre to 37.1 dwelling units per acre, plus following all staff recommendations.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. DeZero and a second. I'm still getting your last name, I'm sorry. Mr. Thornton? Any further discussion? Okay, let's call for the vote.
The motion to recommend approval passes 4-3.
Okay. This is a call to the public, so this is, please, we have a meeting going on, please. It's an opportunity for the public to address the commission on a topic not on today's agenda. We are not able to respond directly or have a two-way conversation. If you'd like to speak, please approach the podium and spell your name for the record.
My name is Emiliano Torres, T as in Tom, O-R-R-E-S. There was a comment made earlier during a zoning request, I think the one on Deer Run. One of the council members asked, has the lot already been graded? I don't think that's a concern of the commission. You can't have someone grade a lot prior to zoning thinking that that may preoccupy yourself as to approving zoning. We have a whole lot of development going up above Cherry Tree that has already been graded extensively, and it does not comply with the general plan. You cannot say, well, it was graded, so now we must change the zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public want to address the commission? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment and future meetings, Mr. Gilbert.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Future meetings?
Yes, I actually have a couple of points. I should have said this earlier. Tonight is Luke's last planning commission meeting, or today, Luke's last planning commission meeting. He is retiring the end of this month, and it's the end of his career.
Thank you.
As far as next meetings, October 4th, there will not be a meeting. As it turned out, the case that we were thinking was going to be on for October 4th, they changed the site plan right before we noticed, so we decided to kick that back to the next meeting date, which is October 18th. And as it sits right now, we have at least 3 cases for that night, including Window Rock. So it's going to be a pretty busy meeting night.
Okay. All right, thank you. With that said, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.